And welcome back to another episode of Big Apple Hockey. I am your host for tonight, John Polkowski. That's my government name. See it below. Follow me on Twitter at 92and82. And we're here to talk about a big win. This might be the biggest win of the season for the New York Rangers. If we get to a point in the season where the Rangers make the playoffs, they go on a run of some sort, you're going to have to look back at this game, and not just because they won and it's a 4-game win streak, but this was a big gutsy win. What's going on, Matt? There's a lot to talk about in this game, and I think a lot of players came together for this and really put their big boy pants on. And there's a few moments in this game that I want to highlight. Well, two in specific that I really want to highlight, but one of them that's not going to get the recognition that it should. The other is a very obvious one. I already see it being talked about in the chat, but there's a lot to talk about tonight, and this is a good game. I was at the gym after the game, so I would have done this earlier, but better late than never. And I'm going to be up for a bit, so I figured, well, why not? Let's talk some hockey tonight. So, but you know what time that is, so let's get down to it. And it's time for the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. And there's all three to talk about tonight. So, as usual, we'll start with the good. So, I'm going to give credit to Gerard Gallant tonight. He pushed the right buttons by reuniting the kid line and demoting Jacob Trouba. So, to get rid of, well, not really get rid of, but kind of demote Trouba and make sure that he wasn't playing as much minutes as he was playing before. It seems like that Miller-Trouba pairing just doesn't work anymore. And I think Gallant realized it tonight. And I think that I think that just doing that and reuniting the kid line and getting them together and getting them the matchups that they needed, I think Gallant actually pushed the right buttons tonight. And it was we often criticize Gallant for not making the in-game adjustments and and making the necessary moves to really help win games for the team. But Gallant tonight, he did, and I think his head was in the game. I think the team showing some life and some fight when they were down. We'll talk about that in a bit too. I think that there were definitely parties tonight that needed to carry their own weight. Gallant was one of them, and I think Gallant carried his weight tonight. So this was the adjustment that he would make last year. Now he made it tonight, and I thought it was really good. I know a lot of people complain, oh well, the kids weren't together. You know what? They weren't on the top line with Mika. That line wasn't working tonight. It just wasn't. And no matter what they did, no matter how they played, it wasn't working tonight. And I think the adjustments, they proved to be the right moves. So I will give Gallant 100% credit. He deserves it. He made the right moves. And Vinny Trocheck, I think maybe played his best game as a Ranger. And he was all over the place tonight. He was really good. He got the power play goal, the deflection, and his line with Kreider and Vesey was really good. They might be the most consistent line all night. Every time they were out there, it looked like they were doing something after the first 10 minutes of the first 15 minutes of the game, I would say. So very good for Vinny Trocheck to step up and have a big game for this team. They needed him. This is what they wanted him for. He proved that he could play worth his contract tonight. I thought he was really good. So he was winning faceoffs. physical play, two-way play. He was a pain in the neck. He was causing scruffles and scrums and everything when they were down. That's the type of energy that this team needs to feed off of, is what Trocheck was doing, and they need him to be that every night. And he was really, really good tonight. So good for Vinny Trocheck to bring the energy tonight. Thought he was the best Ranger on the ice from start to finish. And if that line stays together and that's their third line, there you go. I think that's best for the team. You know what? It may not be ideal having two players making about 11 or 12 million combined on the third line. But you know what? If it wins games, it's got to be done. It's got to be done. Move on from Vinny Trocheck. And I was alluding to this before, but when they were down, they showed life and fight to their game that they hadn't shown when they were down at any other time this season. So for me, that's really good. It's a great sign. You want to see this team fight the way that they fought last year. And you know what? There haven't been a lot of games where they've shown that life. We could say the St. Louis game, you know, they got the lead 3 times, and then when they blew the lead, you know, they came back and they won. That's great, but this is a much better team. This is a much better team that really, really got the best of their number. So it really got the best of them, had their number. New Jersey played so well against them earlier on this year. Obviously, the Rangers, you know, they took the early lead in that game, and then you know, they blew the lead. But you know, the Rangers turned the tables on the Devils, so it's a big, big gutsy win. But yeah, they needed that energy, and because they looked down and out, and they needed something. So that was it. Unsung moment of the game: Chris Kreider's late first period goal. Now, you look at it, and at the time, it was like, okay, you know what? It's a goal to make it a 2-1 game. You're not thinking much of it because they're still, you know, 40 minutes to play. They're not looking great. But in the grand scheme of things, that's a big, big goal. Because remember, goals at the end of the period are either big confidence boosters for the team that scores it, and they're backbreakers for the team that, or they can be backbreakers for the team that lets it up. So I like Chris Kreider coming through there. He's actually on pace for 40 goals exactly right now, which is crazy to think about because he's doing it very quietly, and the power play is ranked 17th in the league. Now just think about how many goals he'd have if the power play was converting and he was getting those deflections that he was getting last year. He'd probably have closer to 20 goals right now, if not 20. Maybe even more. Maybe like last year, he's challenging for the league leading goals if things are going his way this year. I still want to see more consistent play from him over 60 minutes in a game. Just like last year around this time, I was asking for the consistent play, and then he started bringing it. But this was a big moment in the game that doesn't get talked about enough. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it the way that should be talked about because that's a big, big goal for Chris Kreider right there. So we'll move on from Kreider's that. And then the turning point of the game, which it's been alluded to in the chat, Igor Shesterkin stops Jack Hughes on a penalty shot, and the Rangers score 2 goals in 7 seconds after, including a power play goal from the aforementioned Vinny Trocheck. And that's big because that point, it's a 3-1 game at that point. And the Rangers are down, and if Jack Hughes scores there, that's game over. That is game over. But Igor Shesterkin stands up and says, I am not letting this in. I am not letting this happen. And boom, he stops him with the poke check. Hughes loses control of the puck. No goal. What happens? Power play is drawn. Adam Fox shoots one from the point, which he's needed to do more of this year and in general. He shoots one from the point, gets it through on net for a deflection, and Vinny Trocheck gets the deflection out front. And we've got a 3-2 game. And then right after, the building, MSG, absolutely explodes. Tell me you're not getting chills right now thinking about how that place, how that building absolutely shook to its core when the Rangers tied that game up on that play with Capo Caco. What a play by Filipino and Keandre Miller to get the puck to Caco. And that was a much, much needed goal for Capo Caco. He was in the right place at the right time. Gallant put the kids back together, and the kids played well together again. And you know what? You want to criticize Gallant for taking the kids away from Zibanejad? Fine, but I don't think it's the night to do it because it ended up being the right move. So, and then we were talking about Keandre Miller. He's my next point. Aside from a bad pinch, Miller was really good after the Trouba demotion. He played great. He started playing more like the Keandre Miller we saw the second half of last season and in the playoffs. And I really, Leo, I'm gonna bookmark your comment, and I'm gonna go back to that when we do Q&A, which we'll do in a little bit. I'll get to your comments in a little bit, but that's definitely a good question that you just asked there, Leo. Yeah, and all right, Sean, I'm bookmarking that one too. But yeah, Miller was really, really good after the Trouba demotion. And I saw someone say that Schneider was really good too. I did think that pairing was really good together. I really did. They had a couple of shifts where they were kind of pinned in their own zone for a little bit, but they actually did well. Schneider made some good plays, but Keandre Miller was tracking down players and playing like he had that confidence and that swagger in the second half of the last season. So he's got to stay away from Jacob Trouba. I think Braden Schneider's earned his place in the top four. Jacob Trouba cannot be in the top four anymore. He can't. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But Keandre Miller played really good. You could just tell he started getting the confidence back because he started rushing the puck up. He started making plays offensively with the puck again, and he looked like he looked, like I said, in the second half of last season. So I think this is more than enough proof that pairing with him and Trouba, that can't be anymore. Truba's got to be on third pairing. Either that or he's got to sit. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that, my friends, was all of the good that I had.
That's good.
Now we'll go on to the bad. And there's more slow starts in periods and games from the Rangers. And that's got to end. It's got to end. I saw Matt. I saw you make a comment about this earlier on. Still pisses Matt off that they can't play a full 60 minutes. Cup teams don't do that. You're right. You're absolutely right there because they don't. And if this team is going to continue to win games consistently, they're going to have to wake up. And I don't know if it's smelling salts that they need, energy drinks. I don't care what they do. They've got to start waking up for games and being ready to play. And that's not just on the players. That's on the coach too. So that's got to change. So you can't turn the puck over in the defensive zone like that, the way that they did with the frequency that they did that early in a game. You can't. It's inexcusable. It's got to stop. And there was one guy that was really the culprit there, but the breakouts weren't working. Players weren't in the right positions. And part of the Rangers' problem is not just team speed, but it's players not being in the right positions for the breakouts, and it makes the breakouts harder. And it makes puck movement harder. It makes chance generation harder. makes everything harder. It makes your entire game harder. You got to be better. And I don't understand the sheer refusal to get away from the stretch pass because they're not catching anybody in transition. I've said this many times, but they continue to do that, and they can't break out as a unit that way. And it leads to them going in outnumbered into the offensive zone. And that's why they're not generating chances off the rush, not generating chances in the slot. We'll talk about that as well. Ooh, St. Louis won in overtime. That's an interesting game. But yeah, it's you gotta be much better than that to start games and be better positions, and the structure just has to be better. Overall, everything. The execution is so poor because the fundamentals are bad, and basics are where it starts. So, moving on from that, the other bad thing that I have was they, as I was just saying, need to generate more higher danger chances. There were only 4 slot shots and 2 rush chances, as per Mike Kelly on NHL Network tonight, and that's not good. That's not good. So if there's 2 rush chances and they score on one of them, what happens if they have a night where they're not scoring off the rush? I mean, if you're not going to get a lot of high danger chances, you're not going to score a lot. So I feel that's fairly obvious to say that, but it has to be said because just like last year, they weren't generating a lot of scoring chances. And yeah, Michael, this is a winning streak. You win a game, you win another game, you win another game after that. That's called a winning streak. Somebody's got to get the reference. Somebody's got to get the reference here. Please tell me somebody gets the reference. Because that's a classic movie right there that I'm just quoting. And if you don't get it, oh, man, you got to go and watch. So somebody in the chat, tell me you get that reference. But yes, this is a winning streak. But they need to be better at even strength, need more high danger chances. They need to just be better offensively. And part of that is the breakouts. And I continue to talk about that. Leo, yeah, I'll give you a pass there, buddy. I'll give you and your brother a pass on that. So it is an American movie, but it's a very, very great. It's a absolutely hilarious movie. So, yeah, they need to be better on this. And this all stems down to fundamentals and basics, and just the way that they're executing just doesn't help. So against a team like the Devils, a team that's relentless, a team that just attacks you in waves, the way to beat a team like that is to catch them with their pants down in transition. And yes, stretch passes help that. But if you're not moving your feet, you're not in the right positions, those stretch passes aren't going to matter because they know that they're coming and the execution's so poor that it's not going to matter. So you got to start moving the puck as a unit and break out of the zone as a unit. And they continue to go with the stretch pass and just not move as a unit. And I don't understand it. I really don't. Makes no sense to me. I'll never get them, but hey, we'll continue to point it out. And that is the bad.
Ooh, that's bad.
And there's only one ugly. And you know where I'm going with it. It's that guy. Jacob Trouba needs to sit. He needs to sit. 2 turnovers. One of those leading directly to a goal. And the first turnover that I'm talking about was a play that ended up leading to a defensive zone draw, which was lost. And the shot, the first goal, was right off the faceoff. So while it's not his fault that they lost the faceoff, it's his fault that you couldn't clear the puck. Twice in a row, they couldn't clear the puck, and Trouba got burned. And yes, it's Major League 2, Anthony. Thank you. I know, Joey, you said Major League, but it was 2. Yes, Jalen, you're 19, but that's still, you got to watch that movie. So, and definitely more likes. Please share and subscribe as well. We would appreciate that. I see one in the comments, but yes, please like, share, and subscribe. We all would appreciate that here at Big Apple Hockey. So, but yeah, Trouba needs to sit. It's time. It's time. A message has got to be sent. I don't care if he's the captain. I don't care if he's making $8 million. I don't care that he has the C on his jersey. I don't. I just don't. If you really want to run a meritocracy and you want to hold everybody accountable the way that you say you want to hold everybody accountable, like Gallant has preached in the past, then sit him. Sit him. Sit him. It's got to happen. Sorry, but it's got to happen at this point. It's too much. I would be okay with an AHL conditioning stint as well, but that unfortunately can't happen. He's got a new movement clause, so that's not going to happen. But you can absolutely set him, and you can sit him, and you can send a message and just set him aside and say, hey, you know what? You haven't been good enough. You need to be better. And if he really is that hurt, then he's really got to sit. And Gallant has to take control here. Gallant can't just sit back and let the players just. He can't let the inmates run the asylum. He can't. He can't. And I'm listen. I'm with you. Zach Jones can't be any worse than Trouba at this point. He can't. I don't see how anybody can be a worse option than Trouba at this point. Libor Hayek has played better than Trouba. That's sad. That is absolutely sad. He needs to be Wade Redden. Unfortunately, that can't happen. The new CBA and basically no movement clause has made that pretty much impossible in this case scenario. So that's not happening, my friends. But if he's hurt, he's got to sit. He's got to sit. There's no excuse anymore. Gerard Gallant's got to step up, and he's got to put on his big boy pants, and he's got to send the message here. He's got to make his stand. So, yeah, and that's the thing. I don't like the way that Gallant has. I don't like his lack of handle on this team. I don't. I really don't. Starting to see why he's gotten canned in his 3 previous locations, especially the last 2 where he had success and then got canned. So, but I'll go through some of the other comments here. So that's all I have for my rundown. I'll be on for probably like another. We'll do like 15 minutes of like Q&A because it's late. So, I like this comment from Leo here. Seems that the Rangers can't play in MSG. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but it seems like they've had struggles on home ice compared to last year, but they've struggled overall compared to last year. So I'll take from that what you will, I'll say. I mean, you might have a point here, but I don't know if it's just MSG. I think it's in general. So let's see here. Matt says Trouba has been holding Keandre back. Yes, absolutely. Leo, right on that same note, seeing how Trouba has regressed from last season is disheartening. He's overpaid by about half his salary, probably more. I would say more at this point. He's got to be one of the worst defensemen in the league right now. Easily. So let's see here. Going past. Oh, yeah. And just remember, we are sponsored by Manscaped. So just use the code BAH for Big Apple Hockey for 20% off and free shipping. Like I've shown you the products. I have them. I love them. I think they're awesome. One thing I've started using is the foot spray, which is really cool. Because sometimes, especially after you take a shower, if you're done playing hockey, I just think it's kind of a safe thing to use. So that way you can kind of just go out and not have to worry about your shoes stinking afterwards. So, I mean, I love it. There's toners and deodorant and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Like I said, I have the Lawnmower 2.0. Got to upgrade on that, which I'll probably be doing soon. But 20% off and free shipping. So thank you, Manscaped, for sponsoring us. We appreciate that. So definitely check that out. Like I said, definitely use the code BAH when you do. So we'll go through some other comments here. Let's see. Michael says he thinks that the win streak is more the players getting tired of losing than Gallant working any magic. Well, they did have a players-only meeting a few weeks back. And then Trouba's comments, after the Chicago loss, definitely seemed like there's something that was up in the locker room that needed to be addressed. So I would definitely agree with you to a point. I think tonight Gallant pushed the right buttons. In the other games, definitely not, but tonight he did. Yeah, and Gallant needs the stones to bench Trouba, and it has to happen. It has to happen. Leo, so you know what, Leo? You just asked that, and I'll go back to your comment here because I told you I'd star this. Yes, I think to a point, Heedle's starting to show that he's a number 2 center going forward. He's definitely playing like one. The points aren't completely there because the ice time isn't there, but he's actually on pace for 47 points right now. So I think that Heedle is definitely showing that he's turning a corner at the very least. Like he's turned a solid corner, and they're going to have a big decision to make with him. So, and then Sean says he likes seeing Gallant coaching and making changes in game. Yeah, I think we all did. This was one night where he needed to do that, and he definitely did. So, and yes, as Marc is saying here, nice Manscaped greeting, and leave me a like. Just remember, share, and subscribe. As Mikey says, spread the Big Apple hockey virus. Yes, and I think Heedle adds an element of skill. I think he's a little more skilled than Trocheck, if you ask me. Not saying that Trocheck isn't skilled, but I just think there's an element of skill there, and I really like it. So good for Heedle. Definitely want to see Heedle continue to turn the corner, but his play has been very consistent since he's come back. Seems like he gets hurt, he comes back, and he plays well. Like that's been the common trend with him, like every year for like these last, I would say, 3 seasons now. This year and the previous 2. You know what, Joey? You know what? I would agree with you to a point. I don't think it's just that. I think Trocheck gets better matchups too as a third line center. And you know what? Again, I don't like seeing. I don't think anybody likes seeing, especially management, seeing 2 players in Trocheck and Kreider that combined for $12 million in cap on the third line. But if that's going to make this team better, then it has to be done. You can still give those guys power play time. So, this is a great question from B-Rye. If Capo Caco actually got some power play time, do I think he would have potted 10 by now? Yes, absolutely. And I think with his confidence, I think that game in LA where he should have had a hat trick, he would have had one. And I think the game against St. Louis, he probably would have had a hat trick as well. So I think that would have been his 10 right there. So, yeah. Michael, Kreider is killing it on the third line. Yes. Again, byproduct of better matchups. And last year's team, especially after the deadline, they had the matchups needed to win games. And that's what this needed. And yeah, and this is Mark's right on with this. Mark is on the mark. Yes, I'll use the pun for his editorial. He's on the mark with this. But Trocheck away from Panarin lengthens the lineup. You get a higher skilled player on your third line. And speaking of Wade Redden, the Senators inducted Wade Redden to their Ring of Honor tonight. So, yeah. Let's see here. I'm going to go through some other ones. We'll go to like 12:30, I would say. Leo, you know what? I answered this about Hedel because I told you I would earlier on, but I'll go back over this. Capo Caco to me is really starting to turn a corner. I think his game has been consistently really good all year, aside from maybe a couple of games. But it looks like he's this close to really breaking out. And by really breaking out, I'm not going to say like he's going to be a point per game player or anything like that. But he looks like he's getting closer to scoring those goals consistently on a game-to-game basis. And it's a good sign. And that's all you want to see at this point. You want to see that. Yes, you want to see the results. You want the pucks to go into the net. But he's making things happen. And that's the bare minimum of what you can ask for, but it's also still a pretty good sign. So I think with his emergence, that would go a long way for this team because they need Kakko, Lafreniere, and Hedel to step up and be the core pieces to this team that they should be. And if you want to take a look at something, take a look at the guy in Buffalo, Tage Thompson. Look at his numbers at age 21, 22. He wasn't a good NHL player at that point. He wasn't. He was big, slow, seemed like he was behind. Didn't look like he was going to turn into a real good player. At age 24, he finally broke out and became a great player. Sometimes it takes time, and Tage Thompson is the absolute epitome of the term development is not linear, because it's not. Thompson is the shining example of what you would use for that. So, and I'm not saying these guys are going to be like Tage Thompson, but again, you've got to give them time. Yeah, Matt, when the confidence grows and the goals start to go in, yes, I agree. I think he's going to go off. You know what, Joey? I think I agree with you on this, actually. And Vinny Trocheck's had a 30-goal year. But, yeah, I think I agree with this. Hedel's got a hell of a shot. Really does. He's got great hands, too. Was Thompson a part of the O'Reilly trade? Yes, he was. That was a trade that's worked out for both teams. Big time. Gaudreau needs to be on fourth line. Yes, he does. I think that's where he belongs. I think you mask his deficiencies that way, and I think he's best suited for a fourth line. You know what? I wouldn't mind that. You can interchange Gauthier in there, or if you want to put Gauthier on the third line, I'm okay with that too. I think Gauthier is probably better suited for a fourth line because you're going to get the easiest matchups for him for the most part. But I do think that those guys are kind of like interchangeable. And I don't mind seeing Brzezinski stay. I don't. Oh, God. Dog, the can of dog food. You're reminding me of that and of the Roman Reigns Baron Corbin angle from earlier on this year and last year. Or last year, rather, I should say. Yes, Trocheck, in fairness, has hit a ton of posts, B. Right. You're right about that. You know what? Listen, I'm hard on players, but when they deserve the praise, they deserve the praise. And I'll give Gauthier his due. He's played well. I mean, he's been good. He hasn't been great, but he's been good. And you know what? For a depth player, he's better than a lot of the other options they have so far. So, yeah, Leo, I'll give Gauthier his due. Matt says the thing that everybody has to understand, or not all of them are going to be McDavid. Yes, and your last point is really the first point is fairly obvious, but the second point is really what I want to hammer home here is you got to be one, you got to be patient with them, as I brought up the Tage Thompson point, and then two, you got to put them in a position to succeed, and this club has not done that with young forwards. Excuse me. Yeah, Michael Brzezinski has been okay. I was a fan of his work last year. I thought he played well, and I think he's been decent for them this year. I think he deserves to be in the lineup over Carpenter. I think he deserves to be in the lineup over Blais. I think that he's been all right on the fourth line. Don't ask too much of him, and he'll be okay. Morgan Barron is in Winnipeg, Michael, not Detroit. So yes, he's on a line with Adam Lowry and who's the other guy on that line? Is it Metalainen? Is it Saku Metalainen that's on that line? I think it is Saku Metalainen, if I'm correct. I could be wrong here. No, it's Jansen Harkins. Okay, sorry. I thought it was Metalainen, but it was wrong. So it's Jansen Harkins, Adam Lowry, Morgan Barron. Yeah, he had an assist last game. Morgan Barron's been playing well. Leo asks what happened with Zach Jones. He was alongside a Lundqvist in depth. Now he seems like it. No, you know what? I think Zach Jones has played well at times, hasn't played well as others, and I think it's a combination of things, but I also think that Gallant, for whatever reason, is so quick to punish him when he makes a mistake. But when others make mistakes, they get longer leashes, and I don't like that at all. Sean asks who I would make captain right now: Kreider, Trocheck, Lindgren, or Fox. None. Sorry, but my stance on the captaincy hasn't changed one bit. I don't think anybody is captain material on this team right now. I don't. Michael says waive Blais already. Yeah, I would be okay with that. Joey, this is a great question. Thoughts on Rangers going after Bo Horvat? Yeah, it came out today that the Canucks are not going to be able to re-sign him, so they need to make a deal. I just think he's going to want too much money, and I just wonder if this is going to be a career year for him. He's going to revert back to the player that he was and be overpaid. I mean, he's a good player, and he's scoring a lot of goals. I don't know if what he's doing is sustainable right now, though. That's my big issue. And not only that, but you're going to have to do a lot to re-sign him. You're going to have to move cap around because he's going to get a lot of money. And he's got 20 goals in 28 games entering tonight. That's big. That really is. Vancouver did not play tonight, so they will be playing tomorrow night, I believe. And that's a very, very, very unsustainable pace right there for me, for Bo Horvat. Going on his career numbers, it's unsustainable. He's also shooting at a 21.5%, which is completely unsustainable. So I can't tell you that I'm enamored with him, but I mean, he's having a great year. I like I said, I just don't think this is sustainable. He's on pace for 59 goals, 59, and unless he magically found how to score goals, I I just don't know if it's worth giving up what Vancouver's going to want for him, and someone's got to move around. And I would say if you go get Horvat, that means Filipinos goodbye. That's gone. He's going to be the guy gone. So I agree with this, Michael. I think both of them. And you know what? I will say though, Sammy Blais looks like he's getting his legs back, and it's really really tough because those ACL injuries, you're out for 6 to 8 months, and then you've got to get your legs back, and it takes a while to get your legs back because even though you might be skating after a certain point and you might be practicing, game speed is completely different. A lot of stop and go, and there's a lot, and that builds up muscle. That really builds up muscle, so you got to remember that. So I thought that Blais was kind of rushed back, and I think that he should have been in the AHL for a bit beforehand, but they weren't going to waive him. So they weren't going to be able to send him down because he'd have to go through waivers. So speaking of waivers, should the Rangers have cleaned Eeli Tolvanen? Yeah, I would have liked to, but Cap just dictated that they weren't going to do it, and you already have Vitaly Kravtsov scratched, and the Rangers they could use a guy like him, but it's another guy that has skating issues, that needs time, and I'll say this: I like Tolvanen. I would have liked to have had him. But at this point, you need a guy that's a real difference maker. And as much as I like Tolvanen, I don't think he's that right now for this team. So, in an ideal world, at a different time, yes. Right now, I can see why they didn't pick him up. And it sucks because I do think that you work him with a power skating coach, and you fix his skating, and you make it just slightly above average. I think he's a skilled and smart enough player and a good enough sniper that he's going to be a pretty good player. Like, I think a 20-plus goal, maybe 20 to 30 goal guy. I think if everything works out, I think that's what he could be. So. Yeah, nitpicky. Yeah, again, you're finished, so I totally understand it. It's Tolvanen. Is that how it's correct? It's not Tolvanen, Tolvanen. I guess I'm just trying to go by what looks like you're spelling it in the chat, but yeah. Michael, I agree. Kravtsov does need a spot. Gallant is tanking his value by sending him. Okay, so Tolvanen. Okay, now I know how to pronounce it. Thank you very much, sir. I will make mental note and try not to screw that up going forward. Hey, John. But definitely, I can understand it. Like I said, why they didn't sign him or pick him up, I should say. B-Rice, and I'd imagine this is suggesting Zibanejad as captain. Yeah, I don't. He's the one guy I would say yes to, but I'm not even that much in love with the prospect. I'm really not. So I will just leave it as my stance is no captain right now. I just don't think there's anybody on the team worth it. Yes, please like, share, and subscribe. Probably going to do a few more minutes Oh, Corey, I can always count on you to rip on Marc. And I love you for that. I really do. You always rip on Marc, and I love it. Because if it's not Anthony and myself doing it, somebody's got to do it. It's a dirty job, and everybody wants to do it. Michael says we need to wait for Laffy to grow into the role. Yes. Leo, you have a good night. Thank you for joining, and I appreciate you taking a break from your studying and stuff like that. Good luck on your exam. Let us know how it goes. We'll be on Wednesday for the normal weekday show. We'll probably start sometime, I would say, between 5:45 and 6 o'clock, somewhere in that range. We'll be on till about like 7-ish. Let's see here. We'll go for like 5 more minutes. So get your last comments and questions in, because I do have to start winding down. Now, here, all right, so I'm going to ask a question. Why was Core angsty? And what was he angsty about? Because now I'm curious. I'm really curious to hear this. Let's see what that does. And now I just, for some reason, zoomed in on this, and I did not want to zoom in. Sometimes my laptop does this. I don't understand it. Yeah, this is stupid. I hate when it does this, but whatever. I'm only going to go for a few more minutes. Best line made for Zibanejad and bread. Yeah, I don't like Gaudreau there at all. I don't. I would love to see them try Kravtsov there. I really would. Next 3 games, Leafs, Flyers, and Blackhawks. Got to take 2 out of 3 minimum, that says. Yeah. You got to avenge that loss to Chicago. You definitely got to beat the Flyers, who seem to be in a tailspin. And the Leafs, that's going to be a tough game. That's going to be a tough game. And just remember, the Leafs ended the Devils' winning streak. So the Leafs are perfectly capable of turning it up despite their injury problems and everything else that's going on. So, and Core says he's a bit better. I agree. James, who do I want them to target for a 6D man? Yeah, that's a good question, actually, James. I don't know who's necessarily going to be available. Let's see. Let's see what the trade bait list shows for Frank Saravalli right now. Because, oh no, this is an old one. Never mind. Let's see. No, these are all old. I'm trying to find an updated one. I know he did one earlier on this year. Let's see. NHL. See if there's anybody. Let's see. Okay, so this is Sport Track and their free agency list. I don't see Ryan O'Reilly going anywhere, so I'm not gonna talk about him. You know what? Let's go by positions because the question was actually defense, and I liked James's question because it is definitely something that I think they're going to address by the deadline. So let's see here. Brian Dumoulin not going anywhere. Jake Gardner not really a help. John Klingberg, I've mentioned his name before. I do think he's out of Anaheim by the end of the year. And that's a name that I have mentioned in the past. Shane Gostisbehere, I think he ends up staying. Dmitry Orlov, I would like him as well. I think he would be great. I just don't think Washington's going to, one, deal him in division, and two, I just don't think that he's I don't think he's going to be available because I don't think he's going to leave. Kevin Shattenkirk at Anaheim, I don't think they would do that. It's retread. Carson Soucy would have been available. It had Seattle been bad. I just don't think they're going to deal him now because that was a guy that I mentioned earlier on too, that I would have loved to have seen them get Carson Soucy, but I don't think he's going anywhere now. I don't think he's going anywhere. Dmitry Kulikov is somebody that I've mentioned in the past on Twitter. That was actually brought up by a mutual follow-up of mine on Twitter, Josh Calvin. So thanks to Josh on that one. But Dmitry Kulikov is actually, I think he might end up being a good pick. Another one that Anaheim will probably get rid of by the deadline. Nick Holden. I know that's a name that not a lot of people want to hear, but I have a feeling that he could end up being an option. So, this is actually an interesting comment from Core. Maybe they get a defenseman with 2 years left to make Hagel type move. I don't know who that would be. Unless the Jacob Chikrin price goes down, I don't know who would be available. I really don't, because he's the only one really left with term. But the price is just too astronomically high for a guy who's had one good year, one really good year. So I'm going to say no to that. Mark Pessa, he plays right side. And then Freeman and Marek were trying to drum up value for Luke Shen. That's a no for me. Calvin DeHaan is always hurt. Robert Haig in Detroit could be an interesting one, but there's not a whole lot otherwise. Christian Wolanin in Vancouver would be decent depth. I like Jacob Larson in Ottawa, but I don't know if they necessarily deal him. Could be. But not a lot of great options otherwise. So, but I am going to wrap this up, and I will. I'll definitely be seeing a lot of you guys on Wednesday. That's going to be the next show we'll do. Just wanted to get one in tonight. I'm actually going closer to an hour. I didn't think I'd be going that long, but I kind of got wrapped up in that last question. So, yeah. So thank you all for joining me. Appreciate it. Remember, please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely having a, definitely love doing these. So please, if you can, like, share, and subscribe. Let's spread the Big Apple hockey virus. And I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all very much for joining. I appreciate it. And let's go Rangers.